It's finally official. Marty Walsh is going to Washington. He resigned as mayor of Boston last night after almost 2 terms on the job when the Senate voted to confirm him as Joe Biden's U.S. Secretary of Labor.
There is no other elected or appointed position where you are so closely in touch with the people you serve. It's truly where democracy lies. When faced with a crisis of historic proportions, we stepped up. We were there for the people that we serve, especially the most vulnerable. I spent my entire career fighting for working people, and I'm eager to continue that fight in Washington.
Walsh handed over the reins to former City Council President, now acting Mayor Kim Janey, the first ever black and woman chief executive in the city's history.
It's just still so unbelievable to me. Certainly the title changes, my office changes. I have a much bigger team, and that's exciting because there is a lot of work to do.
And today, on her first day on the job, she visited the Charlestown school she was bused to as a kid. I'm joined by State Representative Russell Holmes of Boston and Kabria Baumgartner, a historian of the African American experience, an associate professor of American Studies at the University of New Hampshire, and the author of the award-winning book In Pursuit of Knowledge, Black Women in Educational Activism in Antebellum America. Kabria, good to meet you, and Representative, good to have you. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course.
Representative, let me start with you. You've been in Boston most of your life. I think it's 54 white guys in a row until last night. What does the ascension of acting Mayor Janey mean to you?
It means that finally I don't have to have a conversation with the person who's sitting in that seat to convince them that structural racism exists, that the lives that we live day to day isn't something that needs to be taught to the person. It's actually a lived experience. And I think that in this moment when we're having the awakening for so many people, it is important that Kim is able to hit the ground and be able to understand that these are the issues that need to be addressed and need to be addressed right away, and not something that someone needs to be on the job learning. So it's great to have her in that role.
Do you worry about her ability to do the things that you and she want her to do in light of the fact that she's ever only been voted for by people in District 7, not citywide, Representative?
No, by no means. And so the elected of color here in the city of Boston, we get together regularly, and we get together every 2 weeks. And so when Kim is in this role, I see us all in this role. It's something that we've been working on hard for the last 10 years, and certainly one of the things that we had in our bailiwick of things to do.
You know, Kabria, while we've never had a black woman lead our city, you write in the Washington Post about a rich history of women leaders and black women leaders in our city. I know this is unfair, but can you just give us a minute for those of us who are woefully underinformed?
Well, you know, one thing I really liked is when Kim Janey said that Boston is a city of possibilities. And that is very true. And we see that when we think about Black women's history. So someone like Mariah Stewart is the first known Black woman political writer and lecturer. And she made her debut in Boston in the 1830s. The first Black women's national organization has its origins in Boston. One of the first Black women's newspapers was established by Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin. She was a Black woman suffragist, and she published that newspaper in Boston. So we have centuries of Black women as a political force in this city.
By the way, read the Washington Post story. People at home, it really is eye-opening and terrific. You know, staying with you for a second, since I rarely have an historian and a politician with me at the same time. Kabria, starting with you, what took so long? I mean, you don't need to be a historian to know that virtually every major American city has had a woman, had an African-American, or both lead their city. Why were we virtually last in line here in Boston?
Well, I was thinking about someone like Melnia Cass, the famed Black woman civic leader. And she played a huge role in Boston politics. Boston politicians always contacted her to get her opinion and her insights. And she didn't actually want to run for office. She never really did. She was encouraged to a few times, but she decided not to. And I think this is a moment in Boston where we're ready and willing to listen to Black women's political leadership and Black women's voices. And I think that's what makes this moment so incredible.
Representative, why weren't we willing to listen for so long?
So, Jim, I'm still not convinced we're willing to listen now. So I look forward to the election in November that's going to prove that actually we're going to follow through and not have it so that white men run the city. I still question that today as a person who's elected each day from a financial perspective, from just look out behind my window. How many people of color actually run into these buildings? And so I'm always wondering, are we ready? And so the fact that Kim was able to be appointed to get the position the way she has, I'm hoping she's able to leverage it like Menino did and certainly move forward.
1993, Menino ascended in the same way, and then we know what happened after that. I just want to play for the audience at home, if they didn't see it, this warm moment from Marty Walsh last night, speaking about texting with his successor. Here's the former mayor.
I was texting with Council President Janey last night, and I texted, think about this for a minute. A little girl from Roxbury is about to be mayor of Boston. And her response was, think about this for a minute. A little boy from Dorchester is about to become United States Labor Secretary of the United States of America.
You know, Kabria, going back to you for a second, I am amazed how many people, I do a radio show, people called when Barack Obama was elected and said, not quite literally, but pretty close, thank God racism is over in this country. And I think most upright people, meaning standing up people, realize that didn't happen. In a survey in the Boston Globe on racism in Boston contemporarily in 2017, Black Americans were asked what the least welcoming major American city was, and by far Boston had that unfortunate distinction. So we know bad things will not disappear. What will the ascension of a black woman to leadership in this city do, particularly, as Russell Holmes said, if many are convinced we're not ready for it, whatever that means?
Well, I think this is a moment to affirm that we welcome Black women's political leadership and that we welcome their vision. I think this is a moment where, as Ayanna Pressley has said, representation matters. But it's not just about representation. I think what is interesting about Mayor Kim Janey is that her values and her principles are grounded in this Black activist organizing tradition. She is committed to education. She's committed to the well-being of the community and the working class. And she supports anti-racist policies and justice and equity. And so I think that we are ready for this at this moment. If we're not ready, we need to get ready because these are exactly the kind of voices that we need.
You know, Russell Holmes, we just have 1 minute left. I hate to ruin this conversation with politics, but that is a reality. Kim Janey's got to decide in about 2 months if she wants to run for, quote, re-election. That's the filing deadline in the city. If she chooses not to run come the fall, that reduces the likelihood that she can achieve a lot of the things that you care deeply about in the next 7 or 8 months, does it not?
It does. But I firmly believe that this is the most demanding job there is in all of politics, certainly in New England. And once she's in it, she's going to assume that role and say it's clear that 9 months or 6 months is not going to be enough. So I fully anticipate Mayor Janey continuing and running in the race in November.
Do you know something or you just assume something?
I'm a politician, so I know a lot about other politicians. And so I'm quite certain that's just, I'm not going to make an announcement for certain. But once you're mayor, I don't see how you're going to ever go back and want to be city councilor.
Representative Holmes, Kabria Baumgartner, thank you both for your perspective. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.